Greetings, this is Griff Ruby, the Nostalgic Catholic, with another Isaac Asimov short story review. Well, a couple episodes ago, I talked about a story called 2430 AD, which he wrote for the IBM magazine, corporate magazine for IBM. They asked him to write a story. He did. He sent it in. They didn't like it, but due to circumstances in his personal life, and maybe he had an idea as well, he decided to try and write another story for them instead. That would be more to what it sounded like maybe they want. So he provided that, and then was told by them, "We thought it over, we'll take the first story," which they did. Well, now he still had this second story that they didn't want. So what happens with that? Well, he was able to place it with Analog magazine. Now it's science fiction, science fact analog. At this point in time, January 1972, but is when it actually appeared. This, however, has the distinction of being the very last story that he would sell to John W. Campbell. And Campbell would not live long enough to see it come in print in his own magazine, as he died in 1971. So, that's very sad. Anyway, but it was that's a real, I don't know, step in his life. Meanwhile, by the time it does come out, it has a new editor by the name of Ben Bova, and he will soon be selling sprinkling the story to Ben Bova and further editors of Analog Science Fiction Science Fact. So for this one, he wrote another story, and it was called, it's not mentioned on the cover, nor is his name, but it's called The Greatest Asset. So, listed at least in the table of contents. Isaac Asimov. And it's on page 44. Alright. So, let's go to 44. We do have a little bit of artwork, which, needless to say, does not get collected into the book by Jupiter, though the story does. In fact, in this book, that comes right after 2430, because the two stories were written together, and so forth. So here it's got a little blurb: the greatest assets. The great advantage of being in the frying pan is that it keeps you hopping. Okay, by Isaac Asimov. Well, it has this little illustration here, doesn't it? So this is the illustration. Try to get to know this guy in here. Those. That's a cat there. Somebody has a cat. If you're more patriotic in this futuristic world, you're just typing away at some sort of a computer keyboard. And is there a mouse? No. I'm not sure what that is there. At any rate, computer mice did not exist in 1970 when he wrote the story, or 72 when it finally saw print. That was totally a graphic user interface device yet to be invented. Okay. But at any rate, if you're more patriotic, you don't keep a cat. Very few people do. It's more patriotic to keep something smaller, like a hamster. If you have to have a pet at all, I guess the most patriotic is you don't. You have a world gravitating towards kind of the same situation described in the other story, but this one, things haven't gotten quite so far. And we also, in the first one, although I didn't mention it in the 2430, it had been mentioned they'd gone to the moon in 69, but that they didn't stay, which is kind of prophetic in a way. I should have mentioned that then, but okay. Here they have a lunar colony. And this will become relevant because you've got Blue Tanzania, and he wants to interview, and he's also kind of working with Eno he wants to interview Eno Adrastus, who happens to be the Secretary General of Ecology. It's not an elective office. How did somebody get chosen for it then? It was little known. It was simply the most important post on Earth where it controlled everything. Okay. It's always having these bizarre political descriptions that don't make a lot of sense. But at any rate, somehow these crazy ideas get set up, and there they are. So, wow, my eyes landed on something, and I thought it said Atlas Shrugged. No, it said Adrastus Shrugged. The stocky figure, shock of hair, once light brown, now brown fleck of gray. Alright. He's being interviewed by Jan Marley. Oh, Jan Marley's in the background. He's kind of answers to all questions. Well, the result is he's trying to have an ecological balance. Well, Marley's one pointing out to arrest us. Okay. Well, there's what you once said. Man's greatest asset is a balanced ecology. And Adrastus say, well, so they tell me, I said. Apparently that's not what he ever really said. And that little detail will be part of a plot defect plot surprise I'm going to save. I'm not going to spoil here. But let's just say that little detail is significant. So, well, there it is in a long shimmer blast. The words waking alive, man's greatest asset. You don't have to complete the statement. What else can I tell you? Can I spend some time with you and watch you work? Well, you're going to watch a glorified clerk. Alright, well, I do have one appointment today. A young fellow named Tanzania. Okay, so that's our guy we met at the very, very beginning. Lou Tanzania. Okay. So Marley is there with Adrastus. I guess they kind of just work in the same office, but he's kind of just somebody there and they chat. So Tanzania, yes, he's come all the way from. He's one of the moon men. He's come all the way from the lunar colony. And he wants to talk to the master ecologist, and he wants to propose something. And he's saying, well, here's what we want to do. We're getting lower and lower on our non-human animals. I don't think that's a good trend. And I'm thinking we should try to develop other ecologies. And well, we can't risk anything getting out and so forth. Well, no. Here's what we'll do. We will run these other ecologies on. We're not on the moon either, by the way. We don't want to disturb our Earth ecology, such as it was, or our lunar ecology, such as that was. That's okay. We'll put it on some asteroids. Give me 10 asteroids to develop 10. And Adrastus finally thinks about it and finally just agrees. Says, well, tell you what, I'll give you 5. Work with those and see what you can do. He doesn't really care if he ever does. He just wants to encourage it for a reason, because there's a different greatest asset, and he doesn't want to talk about that. But it's something that would have made sense from IBM's standpoint. I won't spoil the rest of the story, but it's certainly a more positive story, though you can still see the Earth kind of heading towards a world described by the other story, but it has quite a ways yet to go. And they still have lunar colonies, so there's still some chance they may work their way outward. Though it's not really clear one way or the other if they will. So, that's another story. Thanks for listening.